good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gents. This is about Casanova from Orlando, Florida. This awesome international podcast, Good Wine and Great Laughs. The podcast for wine lovers, ladies and gents. Summer movies reviews and hot topic discussions, ladies and gents. Welcome to Casanova, ladies and gents. If you are new to my YouTube channel, what I do here every Saturday morning, ladies and gents, I have the wine of the day, ladies and gents, followed by the topic of the day, ladies and gents. The topic of the days are always topics that can affect our lives directly or indirectly, ladies and gents. And during the summer months of June and July, what I do, ladies and gents, I take a break is an end of one season to another, ladies and gents, and I take a break from hot topics. And what I do is I select some movies that are in the most theaters or come on any platform such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, and so forth. And I select some movies and then I do a movie review, ladies and gents. So if you like wine, ladies and gents, if you like summer movies reviews and hot topic discussion, ladies and gents, this YouTube channel is for you. If you like the work that I do, ladies and gents, what I ask you to do is only three things. Select on the like button, ladies and gents, for the video that you're watching. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share any of my videos with at least 5 people that you know. All right, ladies and gents, and I gotta wish you now a happy, blessed New Year. I hope you had a great Christmas. I hope you had a great New Year celebration, ladies and gents. Now we start the year and the shit already hit the fan. All right. Okay, just give a quick before I start talking about the topic of the day, just let's jump on to it, because today is Saturday, January 10th, 2026, and the weather here in Orlando is going to be with intervals of clouds and sunshine, highs of 83, ladies and gents, and lows of 63 degrees. Personally, I was enjoying the cold weather that we had here between Christmas and New Year's. The temperature dropped below 50, 40-something degrees, and I was loving it because living in Florida, ladies and gents, sun is heat almost year-round. So when you have a cold front that comes through, I personally appreciate it. A lot of Floridians complain about it. Forget about them. Sometimes it's nice to have some a little bit of break. Okay, all right, ladies and gents. Before I start talking about the topic of the day, let's jump on the wine of the day. We're going to start this year with the brand that I personally love. Is the PAPI from Chile, ladies and gents. For those that follow me before for those years, you already know that I present several of the PAPI wine, and I found these that I never had. It was a Pinot Noir from PAPI. All right, and the picture of this wine is going to be available on all my social medias, ladies and gents. So if you like to look at the picture and take it to the wine store near you, go ahead and see one of my social medias there already displayed here on the screen. So let me see, here's a vintage of 2024, ladies and gents. Once again, say PAPI, the fun, it starts here. Softly sweet, located in the heart of Chile's famous Central Valley grape growing region, PAPI's portfolio of wines specialized in classic, young, and versatile style wines. Only select hand-picked grapes and a careful wine-making process allow us to present this new best wine. Discover the PAPI difference. Once again, the alcohol percent of this wine, ladies and gentlemen, is 12%. It's a Pinot Noir, vintage of 2024, product of Chile. All right. I have drank so many different so many PAPI wines and different ones that I already know if it's PAPI, it's going to be a great wine. So before I even taste it, I'm already, from previous experience of different PAPI wine that I had on this podcast, I already know it's going to be good. Definitely smell good. I love the bouquet of it. Ladies and gents, salute. It is a very, very good Pinot Noir, ladies and gents. Very light. Has a hint of sweetness. I told you, PAPI always ends the wine with a very little hint of sweetness. Now, personally, even though it's two different wines, the Pinot Noir and the Cabernet Sauvignon, the Cabernet Sauvignon from PAPI has a little bit more sweetness, but it's not super sweet, ladies and gents. I just believe me, if you drink the Cabernet Sauvignon from PAPI and you drink, you're going to love it. And if you drink this Pinot right here, you also is going to love it. So my personal opinion about PAPI, I give another 10 for this PAPI wine. All right, ladies and gents. Once again, the picture is going to be available on all my social medias. All right. So let's talk about the topic of the day, ladies and gents. And the topic of the day for the season 12, new year, new season, season 12, episode number 1 is Trump invaded Venezuela and Greenland may be next. I like to give credits to ROLAND, Martin Unfiltered, The Democracy Now, and MS Now. These are the 3 videos that we're going to be watching. And then when I finish watching this video, ladies and gents, I'm come back with my 2 cents about it. Funny thing is that on the day the hell break loose on the 3rd, I was on my way to Puerto Rico. And then found out that all flights had been canceled. Was being canceled because the shenanigans from Trump. So, enough say, it is showtime.
Donald Trump promised no new wars. That's a lie. Donald Trump promised that America was going to be focused on America. That's also a lie. The actions this weekend in Venezuela make it perfectly clear exactly what the right-wing MAGA person is trying to do. In fact, MAGA is thrilled about what took place as the United States stormed Venezuela, sent in special forces, arrested its president and his wife, charged him with drug trafficking. And today, in a New York courtroom, Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, appeared along with his wife before a federal judge. He pled not guilty to charges, making it perfectly clear that he is not guilty. The charges include him and associates conspiring with narco-terrorists to ship thousands of tons of cocaine into the United States. Now, Trump says the U.S. is now in charge in Venezuela. It claims Secretary of State Marco Rubio sought to temper on Capitol Hill, saying the administration is aiming for a democratic transition in the Latin American country. But Trump has made it clear they want to run the country. Protests have been taking place worldwide. Uncertainty mounts over what comes next. And of course, Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, called for an agenda of cooperation with the United States, which is different than what she was saying just 2 days ago. California Congressman Jimmy Gomez joins us right now on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Congressman, glad to have you here. Here's what we know. First and foremost, Donald Trump made no effort at all to alert the Big Eight, or the Group of Eight on Capitol Hill. Now, apparently, he was talking to Republicans, not talking to Democrats. He's decided he can do whatever he wants. He doesn't need to talk to Congress. He needs no authorization. And so his whole deal is, what the hell? I'll do it to Venezuela, and I'll do it to Colombia. I'll do it to Cuba. I'll do whatever it is I want to do.
No, that's absolutely what occurred. Donald Trump is engaging in a foreign policy that he believes should not be bound by the rules of law. He doesn't believe it should be bound by Congress, and he can do whatever he wants whenever he wants. That's why this whole situation smells and stinks to high heaven, because every time he tried to come up with the fact pattern that says, hey, this is why we're doing it, it changes. At first, it was about drugs. Remember, he was saying it's all about drugs and these speedboats and that they're narco terrorists, and that Maduro is directing Tren de Agua in the United States. And that's why they were going to use the Alien Enemies Act, to deport Venezuelans back to Venezuela. But then all of a sudden they invade and take Maduro out. And now it's not just about Maduro being a drug trafficker. It's about the oil. It's about making sure that we have access to minerals, making sure that United States controls that country. So that's the whole thing, is that he's trying to find legal justifications for his actions based on facts that are not necessarily there. So that's why people have to have Congress involved, because Congress is where the people's real representatives are. And we make decisions on the fact that he's sending men and women in uniform that are not Republican or Democrat, but they're Americans into harm's way. But he doesn't seem to care about that. He doesn't care about the facts, and he doesn't care about the consequences of his actions.
Now, let's be clear. I don't know of anybody who says, sure, go right ahead, bring drugs into the United States. But this is where it gets confusing. So now all of a sudden, Trump and Rubio are concerned about drugs, when Donald Trump literally last month pardoned the former president of Honduras, who not only was indicted, he was convicted in a federal courtroom, sentenced to 45 years in prison in the White House. But he goes, well, the Biden Department of Justice treated a man named Trump so badly. They treated this man so badly. And so how can you all of a sudden say you care about drugs and a Latin American country, but you let that Honduran president off?
Exactly.
You can't. That's why it's complete bullshit, because he's trying to justify his actions. He's saying it's about drugs, but he lets off the Honduran president. He says that they're treated poorly. That's his excuse. But we know that that's not true. He was convicted in a court of law. But then remember, he was saying that it was these speedboats bringing up fentanyl. And then when that excuse fell apart, because most fentanyl enters the United States at ports of entry carried by American citizens, not foreigners, by American citizens, then he switched and said it's about the cocaine. And in order to dry up the money, because cocaine's the main money maker for any of these cartels. However, most cocaine doesn't enter through the Caribbean. So he was lying to the American people from the get-go that it was about drugs. He had an objective. We knew this from, we had hunches of this as members of Congress, not from any kind of special reporting, but just the way that this administration acts to all its neighbors in the Western Hemisphere. We had a feeling that he was going to target Venezuela since last year after he got elected, because we know the way he thinks. He believes that the United States should have domination over all these other countries. So he says it's about drugs, but then he releases the Honduran president who was convicted. He says it's about drugs, but then most of the drugs don't come up from the Caribbean. They come up through Mexico or through the Pacific. So we know that this was just a pretext to create some kind of regime change that would be more friendly to the United States, not necessarily a new regime, but something that's more friendly that will let them get oil companies back into Venezuela, and in order to also go after the minerals that we need as a country. We do need them, but that's not the way we should go after them. So one of the things is he just has consistently lied to the American people while he's doing this.
Facts.
Yeah, I mean, he's a liar. I mean, he lies and he lies and he lies. Then he comes out and he says, oh, yeah, we were talking with the oil companies before. We're going to go in and get our oil. And let's deal with that. Because here's the thing that I think people need to understand something here. And that is this here. Venezuela is a sovereign nation. So are African nations. So is Brazil. So is Cuba. So is on and on. And so what Trump and MAGA and Republicans are saying is we can do whatever we want, when we want, damn your country, damn your borders and your laws. If there's something that we want, we will take it by force. That's literally this is colonialism. This is imperialism. This is what the United States and Britain and the French have done for centuries.
And it's something that a lot of us who are involved in politics have been trying to change since we've been involved. The reason why is because the United States, when we actually build coalitions, do things in a way that will support countries, that is how we put America first. The way that he's doing it, trying to go back to the old imperialistic ways, that makes the United States weaker. It also gives a green light to China and to Putin and Russia. To one of the things is that to go in against their neighbors, China to Taiwan, Russia to Ukraine and Estonia, and a lot of the former Soviet satellite states. So all of a sudden, we don't have the moral high ground to stand on, and it gives them a green light to violate not only those other sovereign states, but to say that, hey, if the United States did it, so can we.
The thing that gets me is this here. What the hell are your Republican colleagues saying? I mean, surely these people will be yelling, howling, screaming. If Biden or Obama just said, to hell with Congress, I'm going to do what I want to do. And they're just kind of like, okay, go right ahead. We support it. It's great. It's wonderful. We're just going to sit here and take a back seat. I mean, are they saying one thing privately and something else publicly?
Not that I've heard of. And that's because a lot of these folks just fall straight in line when it comes to Donald Trump and when it comes to whatever he wants. They forget that they're members of Congress. They forget that they're actually on an independent branch of government. So they don't actually say something different. And that's the scary part, because a lot of them do have these kind of tendencies. What they need to understand is that this is not just about Maduro. This is not just about Venezuela. It's about how do we make the United States safer? How do we make it more prosperous? Because that's what the Americans care about. Remember, Donald Trump said no more foreign wars. He's going to be the most transparent president in U.S. history, that he was going to make sure that he was going to put America first. But everything that Donald Trump has done against his own base is, one, put foreign countries first, make it all about the billionaires, make it all about people that are well connected at the expense of the working class. So the Republicans should care, but they absolutely don't. And they're not saying anything separate to me, especially I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, but also on the House Intelligence Committee. They haven't expressed any concern. And that's the shocking part, because they should be concerned, because they're getting cut out of the process. And that's why I think you have like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is most of the time out of her mind, but she even said, I'm done with Donald Trump because I'm not here just to rubber stamp whatever he wants. So that's one of the issues, is that's what Republicans do. And that's when they do that, our system of government does not work by any means.
All right. So the question I keep getting from people, okay, fine. What's next? What can Democrats do? You don't control the House. You don't control the Senate. Donald Trump doesn't even give a damn about talking to Republicans. And the Republicans are trying to frame this as, oh, look at the Democrats. They're trying to protect and coddle a drug dealing Venezuelan president. How do y'all respond? What do you say to the public?
Well, one of the things that Maduro was a dictator. He stole an election in 2024, and that we know that a lot of the Venezuelan people are happy that he's gone, especially the ones that fled. The 6 million that fled. The 600,000 Venezuelans are in the United States under TPS, temporary protected status. Now, one of the things that they should keep in mind, now that they had a military action in Venezuela, they can cut a deal with Venezuela and say, hey, you know what? We're going to leave in charge all his buddies, and you guys are going to accept the oil companies to come back in. Plus, you're going to accept all the TPS holders living in the United States because we're going to deport them and you have to accept their return. So that's one of the things is that we want to kind of point out that that's going to happen. Additionally, we have to have a vote on a war powers resolution or have Congress vote on authorization to have military action and also conflict in Venezuela. Because one of the things we want to make sure that the American people know that the Republicans own the mess that will be caused if everything goes sideways. Because that's what's about. They're going to try to say that they didn't know about it, that not enough time passed. We got to trust the president. No, the Republican Party needs to be on the hook for whatever goes down. And that's one process. It doesn't mean it's the last step. It means it's the beginning. And if Donald Trump thinks he's going to be able to get a free pass if the Democrats take the majority in 2026, he's sadly mistaken.
Well, I keep making it clear to people, if you do not show up and vote, this man will be left to do whatever the hell he wants to do, whenever he wants to do it. There should be congressional oversight. And I dare say this election in November is more critical than any that we face. I know people keep saying that, but I have been screaming that from the rooftops. I mean, this fool is talking about invading Mexico. The Supreme Court has said, he pretty much has immunity to do whatever he wants to do. They've given him the green light. And so the thug in chief is literally focused on saying, I will invade, I will overthrow, I will use this military. He's got that idiot Pete Hegseth in charge of the Secretary of Defense. And frankly, what they're going to do is they've weeded out so many generals and other people who oppose their efforts. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they are already planning attacks on other countries to do the exact same thing.
You're absolutely right. One of the things that we know is that Donald Trump is willing to use the National Guard and the Marines in ways that nobody has ever used them before, and in a broader scope. So when they started with the ICE raids in LA, especially sending the National Guard and the Marines, I warn people this is going to spread. And this is not just about ICE raids. This is about normalizing military troops in our cities. So if all of a sudden he says that the elections were stolen and that we're at war with somebody, to justify being able to send troops into the blue states or the blue cities in the red states to control the population. This is about lowering everybody's guard. And why that's dangerous, because what happens if all of a sudden there's disputed elections during the presidential election in 2028? State sends multiple, 2 or more slate of electors, and then all of a sudden nobody gets 270 electoral college votes. Then all of a sudden the election gets kicked to the House of Representatives. It becomes one state, one vote. There are more Republican states than Democratic states. They win without ever firing a shot. So we're playing for keeps. This is not a joke. So this next election is serious. We got to win this election so that we hold the gavel. Hakeem Jeffries is the one determining what electors are sat or not. So this is what it's about. It's about 2028, making sure that we can control the process. Because if we don't, then Donald Trump, even from his grave, will make sure that the Democrats don't have another president for another 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely. Congressman Jimmy Gomez, we appreciate you joining us on the show. This is going to be an ongoing issue, so you're certainly welcome to come back anytime. Thanks a lot.
It's all about the oil. Stupid.
Absolutely.
That's part of the headline of a new piece by our first guest, Mehdi Hasan, the founder of the online news site Zeteo. In the piece, Hasan details how President Trump's repeatedly admitted that gaining access to Venezuela's oil was a key reason why the U.S. attacked Venezuela Saturday and kidnapped President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores. On Monday, Maduro and his wife pleaded not guilty to federal charges in a New York courtroom. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. This is part of what President Trump said on Saturday, from Mar-a-Lago.
The oil companies are going to go in. They're going to spend money. We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago.
On Sunday, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One he'd briefed oil executives ahead of the attack on Venezuela, something he did not do for members of Congress.
Spoken with the oil companies about going into Venezuela?
I have.
Which ones? Have you received any commitments?
All of them, basically.
Any commitments from the oil companies?
They want to go in so badly.
Did you speak with them before the operation took place about, did you maybe tip them off about what was coming?
Before and after. And they want to go in, and they're going to do a great job for the people of Venezuela. And they're going to represent us well.
On Monday, oil company stocks surged in value. Paul Singer, a billionaire who's a top donor to President Trump, is set to profit immensely since his investment firm purchased Citgo, the U.S.-based subsidiary Venezuela state-owned oil company, for $5.9 billion. The Venezuelan government estimates Citgo's value at $18 billion. On Monday, the United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting on the U.S. attack. Venezuela's ambassador to the UN, Samuel Moncada, said Venezuela's targeted due to oil and energy resources.
Venezuela es víctima de estos ataques por razón de sus riquezas naturales.
Venezuela is a victim of these attacks as a result of its natural wealth. Oil, energy, strategic resources, and the geopolitical position of our country have historically been factors of greed and external pressure. When the use of force is used to control resources, impose governments, or redesign states, we are faced with the logic that refers to the worst practices of colonialism and neocolonialism. Accepting this logic implies opening the door to a profoundly unstable world, where countries with greater military capabilities can decide by force the political and economic destiny of other states.
Joining us now is Mehdi Hasan, editor-in-chief and CEO of Zeteo. Thanks so much for joining us again, Mehdi. Why don't you start off with the title of your piece? It's all about the oil, stupid. Or to be exact, yep, it's all about the oil. Talk about what happened, your response to the abduction of the Venezuelan president and his wife, the charging yesterday, what the Trump administration has said he is guilty of doing, actually didn't jive exactly with what he was charged with. But then what all this means as Trump talks about narco-trafficking, but also what? Mentioned 25 times in his press conference afterwards, talked about the word oil.
Yeah, good morning, Amy. Thanks for having me. I wrote that piece on Saturday in a hurry at 7 a.m. when I woke up and saw the news that the U.S. had attacked Venezuela. And I pulled together, it's a list of Trump comments, basically, from the past few months and years. I went back to 2019, and Andrew McCabe, who was FBI deputy director, he wrote in his memoir in 2019, The Threat. He quotes Donald Trump saying in government during his first term, the country we should be invading is Venezuela. They're right next door and they have all that oil. Trump was thinking about Venezuela's oil long ago, even during his period in the wilderness between 2020 and 2024. He did rallies where he spoke about, if I was still in charge, we would have Venezuela's oil. And of course, he spent much of December, just before the New Year's, talking about we want our oil rights back. Our oil was stolen from us. All BS, nonsense, lies. Said Venezuela took our oil. We want it back. They need to return it, he said. They took an oil tanker. He said, we're going to keep the oil. So I put that all together in a quick piece on Saturday, thinking, people are going to attack me as they did in 2003, when people like you and me, Amy, were saying it's about the oil. Iraq was about the oil. But in those days, the people in power pretended it wasn't, right? George Bush, Dick Cheney and others, they said it was WMDs. They said it was democracy. They said it was Al-Qaeda. They at least pretended that it wasn't about the oil. Trump, as you just pointed out, has spent the last 3 days non-stop telling us it's about the oil. So you have all these people on the right and in the center, saying the sophisticated analysis is it's not about the oil. That's a conspiracy theory. And then you have Donald Trump comes out, as usual, throws them all under the bus, says, no, it's about the oil. He just can't stop talking about the oil. Every time he's asked about anything, he says, Well, let's talk about oil. And as you pointed out, oil company stocks are up. He gave oil companies a heads up that he didn't give members of Congress per the Constitution. If you go back to the election campaign, Amy, in Florida at Mar-a-Lago, he hosted a bunch of oil company executives and said, give me $1 billion and I'll help you all out. He's helping them out. He's enjoying himself. This is what he likes. He's not actually done a full regime change. He's kept the Maduro government in place, Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, in place, as long as she plays ball on the oil. He's made that very clear. So this was about oil. It was never about narco-terrorism or drugs. This is the same president who pardoned the former president of Honduras just a few weeks ago, who was convicted in an American court and imprisoned for bringing 400 tons of cocaine into the country. It's not about democracy. This is a president who loves dictators, his pals with Middle East and Asian and African dictators, loves Kim Jong-un.
I'm just pause this video real quick, ladies and gents, and then I continue. Just let's make clear that what he say is completely true. It's not about the drugs. It's not about the Venezuelan president was in the hookup with the drug dealers to bring in drugs to the United States. Because he pardoned the president of Honduras that has been convicted, was in jail. This man has been convicted, he got snatched, he got convicted in the United States, was serving 45 years for bringing drugs from Honduras to the United States, and Trump pardoned him last year. So keep that in mind.
This wasn't about, running a cartel. The indictment that said that Nicolas Maduro was the head of a cartel, the cartel of the Suns, as you pointed out earlier, De La Solis. It's a completely made-up cartel, as experts have said for years. I said it in my piece on Saturday, and now they've dropped it. Classic Trump administration. Whether it's someone that ICE is taking or some foreign leader that they've kidnapped, when they come in front of a judge, they always change their tune.
I want to go to Stephen Miller. He's got a number of titles, but mainly the Deputy Chief of Staff. This is what he said on CNN.
Right.
By definition, we are in charge because we have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our permission. For them to be able to run an economy, they need our permission. So the United States is in charge. The United States is running the country during this transition period.
So that's Stephen Miller. We are in charge, he said. Mehdi Hassan, your response.
And Donald Trump has said the same, right? On Air Force One on Sunday night, it was very interesting to see Trump's comments because, as usual, his people went out to do Operation Cleanup on the media. They tried to clean up his remarks from Saturday, where he said, we're going to run Venezuela. This is a famous anti-war, anti-regime change, anti-nation building, anti-neocon Republican president. And yet on Saturday, he says very quickly, we're going to run Venezuela. So on Sunday morning, all his people go out on the Sunday shows and say that's not what he meant. Marco Rubio does cleanup in aisle 11, goes on the Sunday morning shows and says what he meant was we're going to keep the blockade in place. And then he goes out on Air Force One on Sunday night and says, no, if I tell you who's in charge, it'll be controversial. They say, who? He goes, we're in charge. We're running it. And then you have Stephen Miller, who's also very blunt. I mean, he is the voice of Trump's id, making clear that might is right. The same people who told us for years that America needs to mind its own business, America needs to nation build at home, America needs to stop all these foreign wars, they're now loving this moment. They're very hyped up. They think they've got a big win. They've loved this kind of smooth, elite special forces moment where they pulled Maduro out without any American losses. It has shades of post-war Iraq, mission accomplished, the hubris of the George Bush administration and the neocons in the spring of 2003. It all looks fine in the short term. It's the long term and the medium term that's the problem. And they don't really have a plan for Venezuela. They don't really have a plan for any of these countries they're now threatening. Trump is threatening Cuba. He's threatening Colombia. He's threatening Iran. And of course, he's threatening Denmark by threatening to take Greenland. And Stephen Miller is now pushing this new line that might is right. We're not going to pretend that we care about international law or UN resolutions or national sovereignty. We're going to take what we want. And you're seeing that in the MAGA media universe too, Amy. You're seeing people like Matt Walsh, the far-right podcaster at the Daily Wire, who used to say, I'm a non-interventionist. We shouldn't go abroad. We should focus on America. Now he's saying, well, we should do whatever we want. We're a superpower. And third world countries just have to get on board. So that's an interesting development here in the MAGA movement, which claim to be anti-war. And some of us, I'm sorry, Amy, just have to say this, some of us spent much of 2024 warning people on the left that Donald Trump is not anti-war, will not be a dove. He will actually be a belligerent hawk who starts new wars. He bombed 7 countries in 2024, 7 countries in the space of his first 12 months, and now he's threatening to bomb 4 more, one of whom is a European ally.
Can you talk about Trump's national security strategy, which was released last month, which states the U.S. will, quote, assert and enforce a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine? And, of course, Trump himself now is referring to the Monroe Doctrine.
Well, Donald Trump has the brain and comprehension and attention span of a toddler, and I say that in a very generous fashion. So when he hears new words, new terms, something that makes him sound good, he jumps on it. So of course, when right-wing media came up with this idea of the Monroe Doctrine, borrowing from the Monroe Doctrine, of course, Donald Trump couldn't tell you what the Monroe Doctrine was if his life depended on it. He loves this idea that he's now doing something new in American history. He's a president who's breaking new ground, and this new ground being, we're going to run the hemisphere. You saw the post that the State Department put out yesterday saying it's our hemisphere, which people pointed out is both performatively strong, like being the neighborhood bully, but also weak because you're basically saying, well, the rest of the world isn't ours, which is what previous American presidents suggested, that they were leader of the free world. Trump's basically saying, well, this is ours, and China, Russia can have their spheres of influence, and it is very 19th century-esque. Let's divide up the world between the powers. But on the national security strategy, obviously European governments were alarmed when they saw this national security strategy. It's very hard to describe. It's nuts in many ways. If you read it, it's written, it feels like parts of it are written by the Groypers, by the neo-Nazis around the Nick Fuentes types. It talks about the decline of Western civilization. It says Europe is being destroyed. It's committing suicide by allowing in non-white immigrants. It talks about, it treats the West and Europe as America's main enemy because we know how much Donald Trump actually likes Vladimir Putin. So it's a very bizarre document that is both hawkish and belligerent and isolationist and withdrawalist at the same time. It's classic Trump. He has no consistent views or principles. When people say, what is Trumpism? We need to find out this guiding ideology. Donald Trump is a collection of impulses. And that's why we're now seeing in the space of 72 hours, the same people who spent years telling us that regime change is bad, this is a different Republican Party, this is not the George W. Bush neocon party, suddenly they sound even more hawkish than Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, as I said in my piece, whatever the opposite of rolling in your grave is, he's doing it right now. Because I don't remember George Bush and Dick Cheney threatening 4 countries at a single press conference, one of them being a European country. Trump is doing that. So this isn't about ideology, this isn't about some new doctrine, this is about might being right, this is about Trump's nativist impulse meeting his belligerent impulses. There was a cartoon that Pete Hegseth retweeted from the Trump War Room account over the weekend, which has Donald Trump standing astride Latin America with a stick in his hand. That is their approach to the world right now. Let's see how long it lasts.
And Iran, you have on Monday the Jerusalem Post reporting there are multiple indications the U.S. and Israel are looking into regime change options in Iran. Lindsey Graham was on Fox. He put on a hat that said, make Iran great again. Are you concerned about moving from Venezuela to Iran?
100%. And also Graham took a picture with that hat standing alongside Trump. And Donald Trump, of course, we were told would be the guy who doesn't want a new war in the Middle East. We were told he would do a deal with Iran and do deals with everyone in the region. And of course, he became the first American president to bomb Iran. He did what Obama and Bush and Biden did not do. He bombed Iran last year in violation of international law. He claimed it was to stop this quote unquote 12-day war between Israel and Iran. But smarter analysts like Trita Parsi and others pointed out that this was unresolved, that 2026 would be a year where we would see military conflict again. If you had asked me prior to the New Year's what I was most worried about, I would have said Iran and Venezuela. And Venezuela's happened. Iran is next. In fact, the day before he bombed Venezuela, Amy, actually, let me get the timeline right. On Christmas Day, he bombs Nigeria. On Christmas Day. On New Year's Eve, at a party in Mar-a-Lago, he's asked, what's your New Year's resolution? He says, peace. Peace on earth. Then, on Friday, January 2nd, he posts, we're locked and loaded, ready to attack Iran. And then on Saturday, he attacks Venezuela. This is the most hawkish president of my lifetime at the moment, right now, as of right now, George Bush must be wondering what's going on in his house in Dallas, looking at what Trump's up to. So yes, I'm very worried about a war with Iran. The Israelis and the Israeli press, as you mentioned, are loving this moment. They're seeing this as a moment. Remember, they're tying Venezuela to Iran. They're saying Venezuela supported Hezbollah, Iran supports Hezbollah. These regimes are all connected. It's kind of like a new axis of evil. So of course they're pushing for an attack on Iran. This is not just Netanyahu, by the way. I know we love in this country just to say Netanyahu. It's the entire Israeli political spectrum. Benny Gantz, an opposition leader, former general, openly called, I think yesterday or Sunday, for the Americans to take out the regime in Iran as well. And of course, this is what hubris does to you. Donald Trump will look at what happened in Venezuela and say, well, I did it so smoothly and bloodlessly. By the way, they killed Venezuelans, including Venezuelan civilians.
Right.
But no Americans were lost. And I got praised by people in the media for my wonderful win. That's the kind of hubris that would allow someone like Trump to go, well, maybe we should do it in Iran. Maybe I should listen to Lindsey Graham and Benjamin Netanyahu and Marco Rubio and do it in Iran. Of course, Iran is a very different kettle of fish to Venezuela. That won't be a walk in the park, I can assure you.
Mehdi, when you talk about Nigeria, let's not forget it's the largest oil producer in Africa.
Completely
Iran,
coincidental, Amy. Completely coincidental.
And Iran, of course, overthrown in 1953 by the United States, the democratically elected leader, on behalf of BP. So oil all the way, not to mention Iraq in 2003, when you mentioned George W. Bush. I just wanted to go to Jeffrey Sachs, speaking at the UN Security Council yesterday, the director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University.
In the past month, President Trump has issued direct threats against 6 UN member states, including Colombia, Denmark, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, and of course, Venezuela. Members of the Council are not called upon to judge Nicolas Maduro. They are not called upon to assess whether the recent U.S. attack and ongoing naval quarantine results in freedom or in subjugation. Members of the Council are called upon to defend international law, and specifically the UN Charter.
So that was Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Mehdi Hasan, in this last 30 seconds, supposedly on Thursday, there's going to be a vote and a debate in the U.S. Senate on the War Powers Act. Can you talk about the significance of this and where you see this all headed? President Maduro is expected to be back in court, I think it's March 17th.
Well, we don't know if he's going to actually win or lose. The Trump DOJ doesn't have a great record in prosecuting people. It will be hilarious if they lost and Maduro walked free. Let's see. Very quickly, the story of the Trump administration at home has been people rolling over for him. Big law, big universities, big tech, all of the banks, all rolling over him. Universities rolling over for Trump. And now the story on the international stage is the same. European allies cannot bring themselves to condemn what Trump did. The British government, embarrassingly, could not even say he shouldn't take Greenland. America's wrong to be threatening Greenland. Congress has abdicated its role on foreign policy, on war making. So at every stage, Donald Trump, luckiest man in the world, finds no opposition. I think this is all going to come bite everyone in their backsides very quickly. If he does take Greenland, the Europeans will feel very foolish for not standing together when he went after Venezuela.
Mehdi Hasan, award-winning journalist, editor-in-chief and CEO of Zeteo. We'll link to your piece, Trump's Venezuela attack. It's all about the oil, stupid.
The capture of Nicolas Maduro and the president's subsequent threats against Cuba, Mexico, Colombia, and Greenland have the world on edge. Eurasia Group's annual risk report is taking note, quote, the United States is itself unwinding its own global order. Joining us, president and founder of Eurasia Group and G0 Media, Ian Bremmer. So, Ian, in terms of threats, you list right at the top the United States itself.
Sure. Thanks, Katie. This is the United States, the most powerful country in the world, is driving the lion's share of the geopolitical risk and uncertainty all over the world. It's about how the American political system is going to operate itself, and also about how the U.S. is going to project power around the world, becoming so much less reliable for its friends. And it's not that the actions that we saw in Venezuela over the weekend are going to embolden Russia in Ukraine or embolden China in Taiwan. It doesn't make bad actors into worse actors. They're already bad actors. What it does is it makes American allies much less willing to rely on, to engage with the United States long term. It weakens the U.S. with its friends. That's the challenge.
So when you say we're unwinding the global order that we set up, what does that mean exactly?
Well, if you think about the things that the Americans were committed to, not just the institutions that stood up like the United Nations and the World Bank and the IMF, but also the principles of collective security. The United States would be an anchor for a global umbrella of security that its allies could rely on. The architect of free trade, that it would stand up multilateral institutions and architecture to reduce tariffs and ensure that goods and services and people and ideas and capital could move more easily across borders all over the world, and that the United States would promote rule of law and democracy internationally, not always consistently, frequently hypocritically, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, more often than not. Those are precisely the things that lots of Americans increasingly don't believe in, and that President Trump himself is absolutely abdicating on. And he's not the cause of all of this. He's a symptom. He's a beneficiary, but he's clearly an accelerant. And that's what we're seeing with the Don Roe doctrine in America's backyard.
So the leader of Denmark has said that if the president tries to take Greenland, a NATO country attacking a NATO country, that's the end of NATO. My question is, why does the U.S. feel like it needs to take Greenland? If the U.S. wanted another base in Greenland, if the U.S. wanted more soldiers in Greenland, if the U.S. wanted whatever in Greenland, would the Danish government be stopping us?
I assume it's all the fentanyl export from Greenland coming into the United States, Katie.
I can hear the sarcasm.
Yeah, there is a bit of that. No, that is, of course, the maddening thing about all of this is that if the Americans just picked up the phone to talk to the leadership of Denmark, to the Danish prime minister, they could work out all of those things. What they can't have is control of Greenland. They can't have, sovereignty over Greenland. That's an imperial exercise. The U.S. has no legal right or call on that, but that appears to be what President Trump wants. It's certainly what Stephen Miller has been talking about. Now, here's the other side of that problem. Yes, if the Americans were going to invade Greenland, that would be the end of NATO. But the Americans aren't going to invade Greenland any more than the Russians are going to roll tanks into Poland. That's not the way you do it. You do it asymmetrically. You do it with influence campaigns, with carrots and sticks directly with Greenland as opposed to with Denmark, disinformation, pressure, all of which incrementally are going to be very, very hard for the Danes or anyone else in Europe to effectively respond to.
You mentioned Stephen Miller. He's been talking romantically lately about going back 120 years to a colonial period, arguing that the neoliberal order after the World Wars, World War II, has not benefited the public across the globe, hasn't benefited anybody. And he's arguing that what really needs to happen is a re-exertion of strength in hemispheric zones. Let's go back 120 years, Ian. Isn't part of what the world order and as it stood 120 years ago what led us into two devastating world wars?
In part, but I think the nostalgia for earlier periods sort of dispense with the fact that over the last 40 years, America has benefited far more than its allies
so
from
why do they
the global
continue
order
to
that the
believe
United
that we're
States has
not
stood up.
benefiting? I mean, because they continue to ignore that and say that we've been taken advantage of. What is the disconnect?
Well, the disconnect is that American allies are weaker and they haven't spent on the defense and they aren't growing very much and they're not very productive and their demographics are lousy. And so it's much easier for the United States to say, well, what do we need these countries for? Why don't we just determine the outcomes and we can ride them harder? In the same way that if you want a ceasefire in Ukraine, it's easier to ride the Ukrainians harder than the Russians, not because you like the Ukrainians less, but because the Ukrainians are supplicants who are going to have to capitulate. Where the Russians are stronger, they can hit you back harder. China can hit back the United States a lot harder. So after China tried to hit them hard with tariffs, he backed down. And now he talks about a G2 as opposed to a G7 or a G20. That's what we're talking about here.
And ladies and gents, as you watch with me the three videos right here, it's clear. I'm take a deep breath. Because, all right, it's clear for those that pay attention what's going on in the reality of the United States. Now, for the MAGA part, it doesn't matter. You know, and it's sad that you have a Latin man called Marco Rubio that I'm going to call him out, and I call him out many times. He's a sellout. He's a sellout. Okay? And I'd like to tell you to my people, for the Venezuelans, no, they're, okay, the Latin culture is very diverse because Venezuelans, the Cubans, the Brazilians, the people from the Colombia, Chile, they're all Latin, but different Latin group, Puerto Ricans, you know, but different Latin group, but its own culture has its own. I'm not here to say, you know, the pain. I can understand, I can sympathize, but I cannot say that I understand everything that's going on in Venezuela. And I'm not here to defend Maduro, because in my personal opinion, Maduro is a piece of shit. He's a disgraceful human being that got in power, continuing, you know, Chavez regime, and instead all the oil, all the thing that he got in his country, instead do what's right to help the Venezuelans. He just squeezed the lemon more and make the Venezuelans starve. Basically, there's videos back in the now. You can see, look at it, this starvation Venezuela. Just Google. Don't believe me? Google starvation Venezuela, and you're going to see, you know, plenty of videos, you know, of the struggle of the Venezuelan people. So I'm not defending Maduro here. I'm not defending any dictator. But it's clear that everything that Trump is doing has been said here on the three videos. It's about the oil. He doesn't care about the Venezuelan people. He doesn't care about nobody but his pocket and himself. And Stephen Miller is another piece of shit, you know, that is a Jew that was now, that's videos of, look at the history of this piece of shit. You know, his dad got some issues, some minority that he's from California. He's a Jewish but from California. And so he got mad. It has something to do with his dad's business that went down. So Stephen Miller, for that point, hate all minorities, especially Hispanic people, you know, but he was Jewish. You know, Jewish people should be the last people that try to prey on anybody else, because we went to the Holocaust. You know, but like I said, there's some Jews that in Gaza, they kill, they're taking houses and take everything. It doesn't make any sense. For you to understand this mentality of Trump, they say, oh, you have the right to take. So think about it. Think about it. If it's anybody that just look at your house and say, okay, I see that big house. I see that big screen. I see that big pool. I see what you got in the house. So now what? I'm going to come over here and take over. How would you feel after you work hard, pay your mortgage, you know, went to school, whatever, business, to build your own quote-unquote empire, your lifestyle? Somebody else just come and snatch it and take it because they think they have the right. They like what you got, and they come and get it. You know what I'm saying? And then another thing too, all this crap that Trump's doing, especially for the people that like to travel, you have a target in your back, knowing or unknowingly, because the United States is pissing off so many people right now, so many other nations, that you may think about or have nothing to do with Trump, but at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, they see you as an American. And the hatred that they have, some people have for America, end up being you the one that paying the price, doing your international vacation, mind your own business, but people find out that you're American, you're going to pay the price because what the fuck Trump is doing in this country. So that's why I know a lot of people travel. I told myself, I'm not going anywhere as long you have a Trump or any of the Republicans in charge. I'm not planning to do no international trip at all. No, for each its own. I'm not doing it. Because one thing I learned from the Army, and I tell my kids all the time, you stay alert, you stay alive. Right now is not the time. I understand they want to have a good time. You want to do that, do anything, I would say you want to do, find something domestically to do. So it's crazy, listen. It's really, really crazy what's going on right now. To me, it's insane. Because if it was Biden, like was said by Roland Martin, doing what Trump is doing, if it was Obama, especially if it was Obama, all these Republicans were going crazy, talking all that trash. Fox News, Megyn Kelly, and all these, they going crazy. Tucker Carlson, all this. What's the name of the guy from Fox? Can't remember his name now. I can't remember his name right now. But he always talk about, he's always on Trump defense. Always, like I say, the Fox in general. All the hosts on Fox, Fox and Friends and all that. You'll be just like a crazy talk about all this shit. Before us, Obama doing this. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And like I say, we start a new year, just a new year, And all this first Saturday of the new year, this shit happened. And then, that something happened this week too, but I'm going to talk about this. I'm just waiting for the progress of it. And this is my podcast once a week on Saturdays. The two things I want to discuss, but this podcast is going to be too long. So I'm talking about the Venezuela invasion and snatching of Maduro. Now, today and next Saturday, I'm going to talk about the killing of an innocent woman by ICE in Minnesota. That's going to be the next episode, ladies and gents. So, that's what I have to say about this shenanigans, and God have mercy. That's why my podcast is about because, I have to keep it drinking, because shit's hit the fan already on the first week of this year. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so please be safe, be kind, and be blessed. And if you like this podcast episode today, ladies and gentlemen, please do me a favor, click on this like button right there. If you're not a subscriber, please click on the subscribe button and share with at least 5 people who know about this YouTube channel. I appreciate the support. So once again, please be safe, be kind, and be blessed, and do the best what you can do with what you got in this new year. And salute. And I'll see you next Saturday. Holla!